Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the League Racing TV YouTube channel for rounds 3 and 4 of the first season of the TTML Sprint League. My name is Aidan Carter, otherwise known as Carmentis. I'll be taking you through proceedings in the Sprint League, and joining me in the commentary box once again is Luke Etheridge. Luke, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. Good evening, Aidan. Good evening to everyone watching at home. I'm really interested to see how these two races go tonight. I feel like China's always a bit heated in real life and by the drivers, but seems to provide good racing. I don't think I've commentated on a boring race around Vietnam yet. Probably the most difficult circuit on the game. The drivers will all be hoping if they can just keep it nice and tidy for what is, let's not forget, a quarter race distance, they've got a good chance of getting some decent points.
Yeah, they really do. Obviously, this Sprint League, if you're new to this one, this runs as 2 rounds in one night, a one-shot, 25% race. Other than that, everything else is similar to what you will see in a regular league race. Apart from the weather, it will always be a clear race. But yeah, Vietnam and China, two very different tracks to what we had first time out in Australia and Bahrain. We'll just run you through the results of the last 2 rounds a couple weeks ago. Obviously, you had Esports Masters League in between that, so just a refresher for you on the podiums. A double podium for both Scuba and Wesker last time out, but neither of them won eventually. Adam Acko won in Australia and TTGA Cam won in Bahrain. So 2 different winners so far, but Wesker and Scuba both scoring double podiums, which means it's very, very close in the standings as well coming into this round. So at the moment, Adam Acko leads on 48 points, only 1 point ahead of his Racing Point teammate Wesker in second. Scuba is in third place, a further 2 points behind Wesker, so only 3 points covering the top 3 at the moment in the standings. TTGA Cam a little bit further back after a bit of a disastrous race in Australia. He's on 33 points, level on points with Graham they're level in 4th place. Siege is in 6th place on 26. He's 1 point ahead of DeKeeper, who's in the other McLaren in 7th place, and he's level on points with Maze, Etham and Tekken. They're all level on points from 7th down to 10th place, and behind that, Blessed, Chubbs, Silas, Perpetuum Mobile. Silas, sorry, is the last point scorer. Perpetuum Mobile, the first of the people not to score as of yet. So we've only had 2 rounds in this season so far, and obviously there's still a long way to go, but Racing Point out of the gates flying.
Yeah, they've definitely been the most consistent over the 2 races. Cam obviously was really good in Australia qualifying. The race just did not go to plan. He did manage to recover much better results in Bahrain, and Scuba's always been there and thereabouts. We've learnt that from the other divisions he races in, and we learnt that from F2 this season. It should be pretty good. It should stay fairly close. I feel like with such a short format, you might get the odd shock result every now and then, especially if someone has a bad qualifying, maybe around some of the tracks later in the season, like Monaco being a prime example of one where qualifying is always king at Monaco. And we saw last time out as well, the strategies were a bit different to what we expected, so I wonder how much they'll play a part tonight as well.
Obviously, coming into Vietnam as well, that's obviously this track does have technically a lot of overtaking spots on it because of the length of the straights we've got, but looking at the races I've commentated on the past at Vietnam, and maybe you've seen this as well, Vietnam is actually quite a difficult track to overtake at.
Yeah, the key is just lining it up all perfectly. The first DRS zone into turn 1 is not really an opportunity. I can't see you going for it at the sort of roundabout style chicane at 6 and 7, just because then you'll be giving your opponent DRS all the way down the straight. You've got to get that long left-hander right coming through turn 8, so you get the best possible run through turn 9, and in the dirty air it's really difficult to stay close to the car ahead, and quite often, like you said, the car ahead is just far enough ahead that they can defend into the corner.
Yeah, and that's the real problem as well with the first sector, is that one overtaking opportunity maybe into turn 1, like you say, is a little bit unrealistic. But if you do make that move, then they could easily make the move back on you in the very next corner. So it's very easy to overcook an overtake attempt here and lose the place immediately as well. And especially with that final sector as well, we talk about the dirty air in those longer corners, but that final sector, there is not a single overtaking opportunity in that final sector of the lap. It is very Monaco-esque and very, well, it's Japan with walls is what the Vietnam track designers have said is what it's like. It's the second half of the final sector anyway is Japan with walls, and it's incredibly difficult to overtake in there, which makes qualifying all that more important for Vietnam as well. But China a little bit later on, more of your traditional Tilke track, isn't it? It's long sweeping corners which do obviously affect the cars in the dirty air, but that long back straight, a much easier track to overtake on.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, that the end of China with that hairpin and then the left-hander for the final corner sort of reminds me of turn 11, 12 to 13. And I know you said you can't overtake in the final sector. I think sometimes if you're brave enough and if the car ahead of you's made a bit of a mess of the S's, sometimes it's a turn 22 you can just send a dive bomb down the inside, but I doubt you'd do that unless you were really desperate to get ahead, or you knew the car ahead had a problem, had some damage, or you're just on much better tyres. But qualifying, as always, definitely really important, and we'll see who takes the pole and the bonus points for this first race tonight.
Yeah, Tekken's retired from the session already, so he'll be starting in 13th place, but we're going to ride ball with Ethan in the Ferrari. He had a pretty solid time first time out, was running midway through the top 10, and good races. A little bit unfortunate in Australia with that virtual safety car, I think, that we had at the midway through, but coming through turns 3 now, really, really long corners in the opening part of this lap. Siege, another one retiring, Mays, another one as well, so 3 people already out of the session, probably with invalidations, Tekken before the line even happened, and now we come to the end of the first sector. 25.6 from Ethan, P5 at the moment, which is where we're used to seeing him, as he now comes through this tricky chicane and runs really wide, nearly puts it in the wall, and has a massive slide midway through turn 8 and has hit the car into the wall, and that is Ethan's lap absolutely ruined. So we're going to go on board with Cam then for the rest of his lap. He's making his way down the back straight now, which isn't really as straight, very similar to Valencia back in the days where it would curve midway through. It gets pretty narrow at points as well. We now head down to this hairpin, which is incredibly tight on the exit. You want to get a move done before you get into the hairpin, really, because there's not a lot of room to run too wide coming out of it. And now into the final sector, very, very technical as we come up towards turn 13, and then 14, 15 and 16 quickly follow. So there's turn 13, keeps away from the curb, nice line through there, then 14, 15 through 16, through the kink of 17, through 18, and now through turn 19. The corners come at you thick and fast, and now into turn 20 and 21. Gets on the curb a little bit, runs a little bit wide, but gets away with it through 21, and now into the break-ins over 22. The only overtaking spot if you can make the move stick, and now into the final corner of 23. So easy to hit the wall on the inside, and Cam does exactly that. Ricochets into the outside wall, and that costs Cam pole position. Honey Badger in the end is the one that takes pole position with a 33.6. Cam looked to have that one in the bag, but a crucial error at the final corner.
Yeah, big error at the final corner, but as you said, you see it so often. The racing points looking very good again with 3rd and 4th position, and Ethan may have made that mistake, but at least he got to the end. 4 other drivers didn't, and I'm interested to see how Honey Badger does in this. He's got pole position, but his Wednesday night luck certainly deserted him during the F2 season. He'll be hoping for better tonight.
Yeah, he really will be. He takes pole position then for the 3rd round of the season by nearly exactly 4/10 of a second over Cam, who had it in the palm of his hands before that mistake. 2nd on the grid, though, still a good result from Cam. Racing Point, like you said, strong once again. 3rd and 4th, Adamako 3rd, Wesker 4th. Perpetual Mobile in his first race in the Ferrari in 5th place, just a little bit behind, but only 9 thousandths behind Wesker, so he's competitive as well. Big gap then back to Corboy in 6th place ahead of Graham in 7th. Both AlphaTauris line up alongside each other. Silas in 8th, and Ethan, the last of the people to set a time, in 9th place, but obviously he spun through turn 8. Blessed, Siege, and the other two, I couldn't quite catch the other 2 drivers, but Tekken was one of them definitely. But 4 drivers already invalidating in the qualifying for Vietnam, and that could be really, really crucial for their races.
Definitely. It's you don't want to be stuck in the midfield or near the back around here, because DRS trains are so easy to get stuck in on this game. If you're the 3rd car in the train, you're not overtaking the car ahead unless they run out of ERS, basically, or have a bad exit. So you don't want to get stuck behind them. Maybe they can make a move in the first couple of laps. We'll see how it goes, but we saw in qualifying there from Ethan how easy it is to lose it at some part of the track, and I think other drivers will be absolutely delighted, of course, that the weather is set to dry, because you do see a lot of wet races around here, and that just makes it almost guaranteed that you'll see some accidents.
Yeah, I remember commentating over the first Division 3 race last season at Vietnam. It was the 2nd race of the season. That was a full wet race. Bizarrely, that race actually was probably the cleanest race we had all season. I think everyone was so nervous trying not to crash the car into any of the walls that they just ended up driving within themselves and not actually making any mistakes, which turned out pretty nice for them. The thing with Vietnam as well was obviously on this game there is a new kind of track grip system really for street circuits, where street circuits tend to have a lot less grip than the permanent circuits you see on this game. And that's another thing as well around Vietnam, just to add to the pressures that they have. Obviously 23 corners here to catch you out, along with the longer corners that you get and the long straights as well, and the low grip. It's really, really difficult to master a lap around this track, let alone master it for 14 laps in a row, and especially first lap. The first lap is going to be incredibly crucial here, isn't it? Especially with the likes of turn 2 and 3, so easy to make contact in those corners.
Yeah, definitely, and you're going to want to keep it clean though, just because there is no safety cars. You're going to have to keep it nice and clean, because the safety cars are turned off. You make a mistake, you break your front wing, pretty much game over for you scoring any decent amount of points, so you'll want to be careful. I think why the drivers find this such an awkward track is how much you need to keep a rhythm through the first sector from turn 1 to turn 5. You need to get a nice rhythm going, and then all the final sector is just about being as smooth as possible, not accelerating too much so you end up having to take a wider line for the next corner, not slowing down too much so you kill your momentum. It's a really difficult track, probably understandably one of the most difficult on the game to actually get a perfect lap. And like you said, some of these drivers are going to have to try and do 14 perfect laps if they want to move their way further up the grid.
Yeah, they really do. It's the person that makes the least amount of mistakes really today that's going to come away with a good result. I imagine Vietnam for a lot of drivers is incredibly frustrating, but when you get it bang on absolutely right, it is it's very satisfying to get a perfect lap around this track. And like you said, you've got to chain the corners together really nicely. You've got to get into a rhythm. One mistake in a corner in the early part of sector 1 or sector 3 and you could end up losing half a second by the end of that sector. There's just so many corners in quick succession around this track. Before we get going though, we're going to run you through quickly the tyres. So everyone obviously who set their lap time will be on the soft compound tyres, but everyone from 10th down, so Serve the Bless, Siege, Maze and Tekken, all starting on the mediums. And do you see the alternate strategy playing that much of an important role in this race?
Not as much as perhaps some other circuits, and I think we're definitely going to see it later on at China. But no, around here I don't think it's any more powerful than it is around some others. It's a very interesting pit lane layout here as well. They have to start the pit lane speed limiter so early, a bit like Silverstone, just because of how many corners you cut out. So I wonder if any drivers might be tempted to go for it on the final lap and go into the pit lane, but I'm sure it's all been calculated properly so they can't. I expect those that are near the front to do better, just because if you are further down, like we said, despite the long straights, it's hard to overtake around here.
It really is. Got to look out for those people on the mediums, and look out for the strategies as well. Who's going to come in early? Who's going to go long? We saw that the going out longer in Australia worked out perfectly for Adamako. It got him a really good result. But here we go then. Here come the lights ahead of the drivers. Who's going to get the best start of Vietnam? Lights are out and away they go, and it looks like Honey Badger's actually got off to a brilliant start. I don't think Cam quite reacted to the lights as quickly, but coming down to the second phase of the start, Honey Badger all of a sudden loses all of his momentum, and Cam breezes down the inside into turn 1. Perpetuum Mobile's had a brilliant start. He's already up to 3rd from 5th on the grid. He's had a great one. He's trying to go around the outside of Honey Badger. Not enough room though through turns 3 and 4, so he's going to stick him behind for the time being. But Cam making up for that mistake in qualifying immediately into the race lead. Honey Badger a good initial getaway, but the second phase of the start was really poor, and now Perpetuum's trying to make a move on him as well, down into the chicane. Not quite close enough. He's going to stay in 3rd place for the time being. Racing Points run 4th and 5th. They keep the same order. Callboys is 6th. Silas has had a great start. He's up into 7th place ahead of Graham, who has dropped places. Siege has gained a place on his teammate and on Serve the Bless, and he's in 10th at the moment. Other than that, a fairly clean start, but what a start for Cam, as Perpetuum Mobile is now going down the inside through the kink of the straight and is already past Honey Badger well before the hairpin. Used a little bit of ZRS that he had in his back pocket to get the move done. Honey Badger had nothing to fight with really down into the hairpin, and Honey Badger, after a great qualifying, already down to 3rd.
Yeah, it's like you said, in that initial phase of the start, he got absolutely bang on with his reaction, just way too much wheel spin on the next stage. You saw him nearly losing it completely. Very lucky that at that stage of the start it was only Cam that got ahead of him. Perpetuum using his ERS now when they're not stuck in this DRS train to get ahead. Both Racing Points losing a position off the start because Perpetuum's just had an absolutely fantastic first lap. He started 5th, he was up to 3rd after turn 1, he's now up into 2nd, and hoping to keep on the back of Cam, who's had an absolute dream start. But let's not forget, he was leading in Australia, and then it all went horribly wrong for the McLaren driver. But one lap gone here, he's got the lead, and he'll be wanting to just streak away and take the victory.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot of pressure, though, for Perpetuum behind. He's looking very fast at this point. He's sticking to the back of the McLaren nicely. And obviously, this is Perpetuum's first race of the season, so he's already 2 rounds down. He's got to try and make up for the lack of points that he already has compared to some of the drivers in front. But he is sticking with Cam nicely. Honey Badger staying in 3rd place for the time being. Not really under any pressure at all for the Racing Points. They look fast in qualifying. They're not quite as fast at the moment in the race. And actually, it looks more like Callboys closing in on the back of Wesker than anything else in the AlphaTauri. He had a bit of a poor qualifying, was a second slower than the Racing Points in qualifying, but he's tucked right up behind Wesker. Graham's worked his way back past Silas, so he's up into 7th place, but has become a little bit detached from his teammates, so he's not quite in DRS range as of yet. We've got a yellow flag in sector 2. I think that's for Silas, actually. Silas has gone off the road coming out of turn 8, and he's hit the wall, and that's going to be a long trip back to the pit lane to replace that front wing. He will be able to get to the end of the race on a set of medium tyres, but Silas running in 8th place would have been a good result for him, but another one to fall foul of that long left-hander.
Yeah, and having to do this entire final sector with a broken front wing is an absolute nightmare. If he doesn't take it carefully, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up breaking some more with the front wing. Given what you said about Cowboy, who was currently in 6th, he may have had quite that big gap to the racing points in qualifying, and we saw a few others do that. I wonder if it was a tactic just to take it a bit more careful because they knew that they'd see some retirements, manage to get yourself a decent midfield starting slot and see what you can do from there, because Perpetuum seems to have loads more pace at the moment than he had in qualifying.
Yeah, he was nearly 6/10 off pole position as Scuba's joined the lobby, so he'll be able to race in China. But yeah, Perpetuum at the moment sticking right to the back of Cam. Cam made a little bit of a mistake through turn 13, nearly lost the car into the wall, but just about held on to it. So Cam, you can tell, is really pushing. He's really on the edge of grip at the moment. We'll have to wait and see when everyone from the soft runners is going to come in. Silas into the pit lane then to replace that front wing. He's the first pit stop of this race. Let's have a look at the medium runners as well. Siege has already passed Ethan actually, so Ethan's seemingly really struggling with a lack of grip here, and actually understeers right into the wall there coming through turns 5. Gets away with it just about, but Siege up a place now into 8th place. He's got Graham in front of him, and you can see as Cam dropped it. Yeah, Cam has dropped it in turn 8. Another driver, the race leader, and for the second time in 2 weeks, a great position, a possibility of a race win has just fallen out of Cam's hands.
Yeah, he'll be absolutely gutted with that. You can now see Graham is all over the back of him. Not sure which one of them. Well, Graham will get the DRS because the detection point is such a long way down the straight. Cam's got front wing damage. That's any chance he had of getting the win over, as Perpetuum and Honey Badger are now battling for the lead of this race. Honey Badger getting very close to the wall. Once again, a lot of drivers seem to be struggling for rear traction. Maybe it is what you said earlier, the difference in the track models on this game on street circuits, but I don't think I've ever seen so many cars seem to be struggling with oversteer on traction.
Yeah, and somewhere before that as well, Graham obviously was only just over a second behind Callboy. He's now 4.5 seconds back, so he's obviously made a mistake himself as well that's put him out of play. And Honey Badger's into the pit lane at the end of lap 3. That's pretty early. He's come in for a set of medium tyres, so he thinks that getting out into some free air, not being stuck behind Perpetuum, could help his race. So he's the first of the leaders in. Perpetuum, Adamako and Wesker staying out, and Callboy once again doing a brilliant job. Callboy was actually on for a really good result, I think, in Bahrain, but unfortunately the race kind of slipped away from him, unfortunately. But he's still doing a good job in 4th place, well ahead of his teammate now after he got a little bit held up and the mistake he made himself. Siege in 6th place on the medium tyres. He's working his way through not too badly, but the medium tyres at the moment just don't seem to have any pace at all.
No, he seems to be the only one who's doing anything slightly decent. Whether he's trying to save them a bit, I don't know. I actually went on board with Honey Badger for his pit stop. He had to have a front wing change, so I wonder if on one of those oversteer moments he did just slightly brush the wall and damage his front wing, and through that final sector you need every bit of downforce possible. And that's not something we've really talked about here, is the setup compromises. You have to make so many long straights, you really, ideally for them parts, you'd want to be running Monza-style wings, but you do that through the final sector, you'd be so slow and just destroy your tyres. So interesting compromises that the drivers have to make around this track.
Yeah, they really do. Meanwhile, Ethan's actually coming back at Siege. So after Ethan struggled a little bit in the opening lap, Siege got through, and now Ethan's trying to work his way back through down the inside towards the hairpin, and he's going to get the move done before the hairpin. Siege tries to turn in, but there's not enough room to go too wide for the hairpin, so he has to back out of the corner and give Ethan the spot. So actually, still those medium tyres not having the advantage over the softs. Ethan works his way back through up into 6th place, so he's working his way through nicely after that little error in qualifying and a little error at the start of the race. Back with the race leaders though, Perpetuum continues to lead. Adam Ako's now into the pit lane, so he's done exactly the opposite of what he did in Australia. He was the last to come in when he was on the soft tyres in Australia. This time round he's one of the first, so Adam Ako this time round not thinking that going long on the softs is going to work.
Yeah, to be honest, on a race this long, about 4 or 5 laps is roughly when we'd expect, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the others coming next time around. We'll see medium tyres going on all of these drivers. For Perpetuum, doesn't have to worry too much about the undercut now that Honey Badger's had that mistake and that front wing change. That's if the Ferrari driver is aware, of course. His main worry is probably going to be the racing points of Adam Ako. Well, definitely of Adam Ako, probably not Wesker, seeing as he'll be pitting the same lap or afterwards. Just have to see how this goes and see how long the medium tyres last. And of course, see how powerful the undercut is, because at the moment, you've got to say, those mediums that the other drivers have started on don't exactly look miles faster than the softs.
No, they really don't seem to have a lot of pace at all. Maze can't keep with his teammate. He's kind of running on his own. So is Tekken, really. Tekken's running a little bit on his own. He's he's actually already a pit stop behind Adam Ako in only 5 laps. Just goes to show how much he's struggled at the opening phases of this race. Adam Ako then comes out onto the track in 8th place, directly behind the Alfa Romeo driver. Callboy comes out in 9th. Callboy jumped Honey Badger as well, so that front wing change has cost Honey Badger dearly, dropping from a net P2, and he's going to be well down into maybe 5th place by the time everyone makes their pit stops. As Adam Ako Adamako tries to go for a move on Tekken around the outside of the hairpin, and Tekken actually outbreaks himself for the hairpin. And that's another thing we see quite a lot around this track. People going a little bit too deep into the hairpin means you have to really compromise your exit speed to get the car turned, and Adamako made good use of that, ducked right up the inside, did the switchback, and got the move done.
Yeah, it's very easily done, and I actually think Tekken did something similar the lap before, just a lot more dramatic, while battling with Maze, and that's why he's now sort of on his own. He used to be really struggling. Such a high-speed braking zone, such a tight braking zone. If you react a tenth of a second later, you've travelled 10, 15 metres further all of a sudden, and you've completely missed your braking point. So, very easily done. Interestingly, Perpetuum, he's going for the tactic of going a lot longer on these soft tyres. Lap 6, still yet to pit. He's the only driver who started on the softs yet to pit. Adamako is looking pretty clear at the moment for a second position, and Wesker in third. It's just how much will the racing points have been able to gain on Perpetuum, because obviously being held back behind Tekken, not ideal for Adam, who will be wanting to use these fresh mediums to their best advantage.
And the good thing for Wesker is he came out just, and when I say just, I mean inches in front of Tekken coming out of the pit lane. He was so close to running into the side of the Alfa Romeo driver, who had to give him space on the exit of turn 2. That's another thing to look out for at this track, is the pit exit feeds you right into the racing line of turn 3, and it is really, really difficult to feed your way into that track when there's racing going on. Wesker able to get ahead of Tekken, which means he's now got a car between himself and Callboy, and Callboy is slowly being reeled in now by Honey Badger, so it's all starting to bunch up a little bit. Adamako now goes for another move down into the hairpin, this time on Maze, and he gets the move done well before the corner, so no real struggle for Adamako. He's through on Maze, works his way up into third on the road. He's got about a 21 second gap to Perpetuum in front. That should keep Perpetuum in the lead, but you know what? Perpetuum's still going. We're going on to lap 7, halfway through this race. Perpetuum not wanting to go off these soft tyres yet.
Yeah, he's enjoying them. I don't see the point in going this long, because 7 laps on the mediums will obviously be a lot better than 7 laps on the softs, and he'll have slightly better tyres than those at the end, but you'd expect, especially probably Wesker's, to be in good enough condition. Siege is only doing 7 laps on the mediums, so we saw this kind of in Australia and Bahrain, that there wasn't really a lot of difference on the tyres, and it was almost like they had identical tyre life, it's just the softs were faster.
Yeah, it does seem very similar to that, like you say. The soft tyres have got good pace in them. Siege then in at the end of lap 6, so he's going to have to do 8 laps on those soft tyres. Where does he come out? He's going to feed himself right into this battle with Graham and Ethan, I think. Let's see where he comes out. Does Siege comes out onto the track? Oh my word, right in the middle of the battle. Nearly runs straight into the back of Ethan. Is just going to keep ahead of Cam. Cam slightly taps his rear wheel, gets away with it. There's no damage, but Siege right into the thick of that battle for 8th place, which should become 7th when Tekken makes his pit stop. So that's a good recovery from Siege, having invalidated in qualifying, but 8 seconds from Graham up to Honey Badger really is the next car on track that he needs to pass for position, so that is not going to happen unless the pace on the softs is incredible. Meanwhile, Callboy now trying to go for a move on Maze down towards the hairpin, so Maze really being swallowed up by the pack. He's already been passed by Wesker. Here goes Callboy then to the outside for the hairpin, and he's going to get the move done. Maze just doesn't have anything to fight with, and Callboy's actually done a brilliant job of working his way through the traffic, and he's now back within DRS range of Wesker, so Callboy looking to try and steal a podium off Wesker.
Yeah, it's always possible. I'm just looking at the gaps between Perpetuum and Adamako, because Perpetuum's carried on for another lap. It's not like he's really lost anything on this last lap.
Yeah, it's bizarre that, he's not really lost. He did a 38.8 that lap, so let's see what Adamako's lap time is when he crosses the line. A 38.8 was about 1.1 seconds off his personal best, so I'm wondering if he made a little bit of an error on that lap as Honey Badger now passes Maze, as Maze is into the pits, as is Tekken. So it does look like the soft tyre going longer is a better option, as Adamako does a 38.2. So Adamako was half a second faster than Perpetuum, but we know that he had a decent enough buffer over Adamako that he can pull that off. It's going to be close when Perpetuum does come into the pit lane, because the advantage is starting to swing towards the mediums. But I mean, going longer on the softs is obviously going to give him a bit of an advantage towards the end of the race on those running on a little bit older medium tyres. But I think with the lead he had, is it really worth taking the risk of staying out this long and taking the risk of being undercut from behind?
Never mind the risk of being undercut behind. What about the risk of all of a sudden getting a puncture and then ending up in the wall or somewhere? Like, I don't see why you'd bother going longer. I can understand maybe 6 laps on the softs. I'd have thought if you're going to go the longest. I can see why Siege did a bit.
Oh, he's just hit the wall.
He's just running out of grip into the wall. Now he's broken his front wing. He's going to have to change his front wing, you'd imagine. And that brings Adamako and Wesker right back into this situation.
That's brilliant stuff for Racing Point. Then Perpetuum did exactly what we said that he was going to do, and he's made a mistake, hit it into the wall. And around Vietnam, front wing damage is massively costly, especially in this final sector. You can already see how much he's struggling with understeer. He comes into the pit lane, yes he does, darts into the pit lane, and he's going to put on the medium compound tyres. Does he change that front wing, or does he keep that front wing on? He'll probably have to change it, but that's going to drop him well down back behind Honey Badger at this rate. And Siege, meanwhile, has worked his way through Etham and Graham incredibly quickly. He's already passed Graham, and 3 seconds up the road. So Siege on these soft tyres is absolutely flying.
Yeah, maybe not counting him out for a podium whatsoever. I mean, Cowboy's, what, 9 seconds up the road at the moment? It's going to be tough in 6 laps, but the pace of the soft tyres seems to be very good indeed. As there we go, Adamako's flying past the straight, Wesker as well. They're all going to jump Perpetuum here. He's going to drop a long way down the order. I think he'll just get out ahead of Honey Badger. It's going to be pretty tight between them. And no, in fact, Honey Badger comes out just ahead. So that's the power of the undercut and having to change your front wing.
And that's the shame for Perpetuum. He looked set on to maybe go for a race victory, and Honey Badger maybe for a second place in this one after Cam's spin, but both of them making mistakes and picking up front wing damage has cost them at the moment. And Honey Badger, having closed in on Callboy initially, now can't seem to really close in anymore. He's starting to struggle a little bit more for pace. So I'm wondering whether Honey Badger just meets that peak in the tyres a bit earlier than everyone else around him. He obviously is on the oldest set of mediums out of the front 5 at the moment, and Perpetuum right on the back of him. Is Perpetuum going to be close enough down the straight? He's got a lot of ERS to use in his attack, and Honey Badger's not using a lot of his as they come down towards the end of the straight. Perpetuum's touch right underneath. He's going to go to the outside line for the hairpin. He's using pretty much all of his ERS to try and get past. Is Honey Badger going to be late enough on the brakes down the inside? He looks down the inside, keeps his nose there, but it's not quite going to be enough. And Perpetuum all the way around the outside works his way back past Honey Badger and up into 4th place. Good move, but from here it's going to be incredibly difficult for him to win this race.
Yeah, he's got to hope that these mediums really do look to be a bit dodgy after 5 or 6 laps, because then Adamako, Wesker and Cowboy might struggle. I don't know why Honey Badger waited until a bit later to use its ERS, because you want that extra. As soon as you've got the full traction from your tyres, that's when you want to be hitting the overtake button. On this game, you need to use it a bit more like the Kers on the old F1 games, because if you're using it at higher speed, it doesn't really give you the same sort of boost. And Honey Badger does seem to be really struggling at the moment. I can't see any major front wing damage, but he's already 1.5 seconds behind the Ferrari. Yeah,
he was sliding all over the road in the background there. He's really struggling for grip. So, yeah, maybe he has hit that peak in his tyres really, really early on. Look at that, 1.8 seconds back already, and Perpetuum's flying. Look at him, he's already 4 tenths behind Callboy. So I'm wondering whether staying out longer actually has given him an advantage. Have the mediums already hit the peak of their life, and they're already starting to lose pace, because here goes Perpetuum down the inside of the chicane. Callboy decides not to fight it, but he's really late on the brakes, has to miss the corner, and Perpetuum's going to pick up a time penalty for his mistake. So he gets the move done, but gets a penalty in the process, so it's going to be even harder for him to win the race. But at the moment, staying out a little bit longer in terms of tyre life has done him no end of good. He's flying at the moment.
At the moment, it wouldn't surprise me if he still ends up 3 seconds ahead of Adamako. He's just flying his way through the field. I mean, look, he's a second ahead of Cowboy. Cowboy's got DRS at the moment. He's got no ERS, but he's gained a second so quickly. At this pace, I don't see how Wesker and Adamako keep them behind, especially because Wesker's not got DRS. Adamako won't have it in the lead of this race. It's going to be very tough for those guys, as further back Etham gets his way past Graham, so they're just fighting over 7th and 8th. I wonder how high Siege can get up in this arrangement. I think the podium's, again, probably a bit unrealistic, but you've got to say Honey Badger's going to be under threat.
Honey Badger's broken his front wing. I just saw that on board Siege. There was an end plate in the middle of the road, and it had a yellow shine to it. Honey Badger's broken his front wing, and again he's into the pits for a second time in this race. It would have been worth him probably just staying out, because he could have held on to 6th place. But Honey Badger into the pits once again. His Wednesday luck just doesn't seem to go away. He keeps making mistakes on Wednesdays, and from a great possibility of a podium position, he's going to drop well down the field, probably behind Tekken, down into 9th place.
Yeah, I imagine he would obviously. Well, Tekken's on fairly fresh soft tyres, to be fair. He is going to drop behind the Alfa Romeo and Mays as well, so we'll be still inside the top 10. Still got a chance of maybe getting a fastest lap. Yeah, could have probably held on, depending how severe the damage is. Actually, to be honest, with the amount he's been sliding, maybe it would have fixed the balance of his car ever so slightly, having a broken front wing. Who knows? Perpetuum already all over the back of Wesker.
Yeah, absolutely flying. Wesker's actually closing on his teammate as well, so it's all starting to Constantina up at the front of the field. Adamako's lost a little bit of pace in the last few laps. I don't know where that's gone, but Wesker is closing in, and look how much he's closing in on a straight line in his defense of Perpetuum. He's closing in massively on his teammate, so it's helping him as he goes to the outside as Perpetuum. Wesker leaves in just enough room against the wall, and that's going to put Perpetuum on the curb, and Perpetuum can't get the power down because of it. So good defending there from Wesker. It was right on the limit. He was really pushing Perpetuum into the wall, but he holds on to the place. Wesker desperate through a third podium out of 3 this season, doing a good job of defending against Perpetuum, and at the moment is doing his teammate a solid job as well as Perpetuum. So much faster in the final sector. He's running into the back of Wesker at every opportunity.
Yeah, and I wonder if we will see one of them moves down into turn 22. He definitely sort of took a wider line, but in the end Wesker was far enough ahead. Adamako's not really got away in all of this. He'd have been hoping to sort of extend his gap ever so slightly at this moment in time and see what he can do, because you can see again Perpetuum all over the back of Wesker, will being stuck in the dirty air, just taking off out of his tyres. I mean, look at that, just straight down the inside at turn 2. That's not something you really see. It's like he's just driving in a completely different series to these drivers at the moment.
He's got so much more grip, and his tyres are only 2 laps younger, so there's not that much of a difference between them. So I'm amazed he's got this pace, and it's a shame he broke his front wing, because he would have been out dominating in the lead, and he just goes clean around the outside of Wesker at the chicane, sweeps into the corner ahead, and actually might end up in the DRS zone of Adamako because he was so fast through the chicane. And you know what he is going to be? That was how fast he was through the chicane, and look at that, in 2 corners. He's broken DRS to Wesker in 2 corners.
Just unbelievable how fast he's been through that chicane. I really don't. I mean, he looked pretty fast on the first set of tyres. As Silas is out of the race. That is in the
final
start
sector, yeah,
of the S's.
I think we're going to get away with no safety car because we're on lap. Well, obviously, safety cars are off, so that's why we're not going to get a safety car. But yeah, another one to fall foul of this race, and he's the first retirement. Obviously, you get points for wherever you finish, so it's a shame Silas is not going to score. But meanwhile, Perpetuum, look at the gap. He's got a Wesker 1.9 seconds. They're absolutely flying.
This is all about how quickly can Perpetuum get ahead of Adamako, and can he get that 3-second gap? And I'd imagine he's going to do so. In fact, Wesker really does seem to be struggling. I wonder if even Cowboy could maybe close up ever so slightly in this final couple of laps. 2.2 seconds to gap at this moment in time. He's going to give it everything. We've had a really close race here at the moment. Cowboy's actually been a bit under the radar in 4th place at the moment, and you'd imagine he's safe there because Siege shouldn't be able to catch up that 4 seconds at this moment, but we said Perpetuum wouldn't be able to close up straight away, and look at this, all over the back of Adamako once again. I feel this is going to be deja vu from the lap before, and he might just drive clean around the outside of the racing point. Looks like he's staying behind. I think it's going to be a last minute move to the outside at turn 6. Adamako just late enough on the brakes to cover that off, but I can't see how he defends down this back straight.
Yeah, there's no way he can defend against Perpetuum here. He's just got so much more grip, so much more confidence. And I'm wondering whether this is what you said earlier on, where if you lose the rhythm around this track, you lose all of your pace. We saw it as soon as Perpetuum passed someone, they lost pace. Maybe they lost their rhythm because of it. But here he goes to the inside line for the hairpin, almost in the wall. That's how much that straight curves through the mid part. He's right up against the wall once again on the right-hand side, but he's going to get the car stopped. And he's into the race lead once again, so he's back into the race lead. But he's only got a lap and a sector to gain 3 seconds. It's not out of the question because Perpetuum has been utterly flying in those last few laps, but it's going to be a tall order for him to try and pull that off. But already, look at the gap, 0.7 of a second in a couple corners again. He's so much more confident at this point.
He's just so much speed in that middle sector. I mean, well, in the final sector even, he seems to his fastest final sector on these medium tyres was a 28.7, and he was doing a 28.7 the lap before as well. It's only when he's got held up by Wesker and Adamako he's slowed down from that. So you can see already he's pulled out quite a margin already, 0.9 of a second. I think Adamako's only hope here is he's just got to go for it and hope that he can somehow just about stay in DRS range. But already that extra pace that Perpetuum seems to have, if Adamako he stayed in DRS range here, if he can use all his ERS to stay in DRS range down the back straight, he can still win this race.
Yeah, it still looks on for him at the moment. It's only a second coming into the end of the first sector, so still 2 seconds for Perpetuum to gain. He's got to hope that Adam Acko picks up a penalty himself, but it doesn't look like he's going to do that at the moment. We're on to the last lap of the race. Meanwhile, further down the field, Ethan had a spin, so currently was battling with Graham for 6th place, had a spin and has broken his front wing entirely, so he's running now down in 11th place. Honey Badger's managed to work his way back up to 7th, nearly back up into 6th, so it's only 1 place off where he would have been in this race anyway. He's closing in on Graham massively. It's whether he can pass him before the end of the race. That's a tall order, but he's got much fresher soft compound tyres on compared to Graham's mediums, which we've already seen in this race, are really struggling for pace. Perpetuum at the end of the straight hasn't really gained anything this time round. It's still only a second to Adam Acko, and Perpetuum has used all of his DRS trying to gap Adam Acko as much as possible. It's a valiant effort for Perpetuum, but that front wing damage at the end at the end of his soft stint really cost him. It could have been an easy victory with the pace he's shown, but unfortunately that mistake has cost him dearly as well, with the penalty as well. That means he's going to miss out. Perpetuum then into the penultimate corner. Great show of pace, and this is really ominous for China if he can get that one sorted. But around the final corner, he's going to win on track, but Adam Acko is going to win on penalties, his second race victory of the season. Adam Acko extends his championship lead. Wesker crosses the line in 3rd ahead of Corboy in 4th place. Siege will cross the line in 5th. A great comeback from him, only 2.5 seconds behind Corboy in the end. Good drive. Graham a fair bit back, and look at Honey Badger. He's closed in. He's going for that move at the penultimate corner. Dives down the inside line, and Graham just doesn't have the grip to defend it. Honey Badger through the last corner is going to have the inside line, and on the last corner of the last lap, Honey Badger steals 6th place back from Graham. A great move from Honey Badger. Salvaged something from what was a disappointing race in the end. Tekken and Mays crossed the line in 8th and 9th, and Cam once again a great opportunity at a podium, spins out of contention down in 10th. Great move from Honey Badger on that penultimate corner. Did exactly what you said earlier on, Luke, and took the opportunity with the fresher tyres. But in the end, Adam Acko, I mean, the racing points at the start of the race seemingly were nowhere, and they came home 1st and 3rd.
And they came home 1st and 3rd just because everyone else in the top 3, well, that looked like the top 3 on pace, made some mistake. Honey Badger breaking his front wing twice, Cam breaking it once, Perpetuum breaking it once. Didn't prove to be the crucial mistake for him. What was crucial was just that corner cut at turn 6. 3 seconds. He'll be fairly happy though, getting 2nd place, and he definitely looked to have the pace on everyone in the field in that race. And if he shows that similar pace in China, should still walk home with a victory tonight.
Yeah, definitely should. Let's wait and see what he can do in China. Yeah, another completely different track, but the pace is ominous. We saw this really from Cam a couple of weeks ago. His pace was ominous in Australia before he made the mistake, and then when we got to Bahrain, he took the race victory in quite easy fashion in the end for him. So I wonder if we're following really the same routine here with Perpetuum. Great result from him in the end. He'll be disappointed to miss out on the win, but still, first round of his season, coming home with the 2nd place and splitting the racing points, which have dominated proceedings so far this season, is a great way to kick off your campaign. But it is Adam Acko that extends his championship lead over his teammate, and the racing points in the manufacturers will continue to pull away. They already have a massive points lead in the manufacturers, and that will extend after this round. Adam Acko then wins the race ahead of Perpetuum Mobile in 2nd and Wesker 3rd. Corboy just missing out on his first podium of the season, but a great drive from him in 4th place. Siege in 5th, good comeback, having invalidated in qualifying. Honey Badger in 6th after a couple mistakes from pole position. His Wednesday luck just doesn't seem to be going away for him. Graham in 7th, ever the consistent man, finishing inside the top 10 once again, but just not quite the same pace that he had in the first 2 rounds of the season. Tekken in 8th ahead of Mays 9th. Cam once again a spin while in the race lead. He's in 10th place. Ethan in 11th. He's spun as well. Served the place, finished in 12th place. And Silas, the only retirement, in 13th. He will not pick up points for that in the end because he did not make it 90% of the way into the race. But a fairly enthralling Vietnam race. Like you said earlier on, that there's never been a boring race that you've commentated over at Vietnam. And once again, Vietnam provides the goods.
Yeah, it did. I'm still a bit surprised by the pace Perpetuum just had on the mediums at the end of the race compared to everyone else. And you've got to say from that, maybe it's a strategy some of the others might try at China. I know I said the alternate strategy is extremely powerful at China, but for example there in Vietnam it didn't really work for anyone. Really, Siege went for it. He was the highest finisher, and part of that was down to others' misfortune rather than just having the pure pace on those medium tyres. So I do wonder if going half distance on the soft, half distance on the mediums is going to be a bit of a tactic we see this season.
Yeah, it might be the case, and yeah, the alternate strategy, like you said, I wasn't expecting it to be that powerful either, but it looked really strong in the end, especially for Siege. He came back right within a fighting chance of a podium from 11th on the grid, so with all the chaos that happened on the first lap as well. That is great stuff from Siege, and China notoriously is difficult on strategy. Notoriously here, you go really for the harder compound tyres. If it's the 50% race, starting on the softs really is a curse around this track. You can't take the softs much further than really 4 or 5 laps before they die in a 50% race, so who knows what they're going to be like in a 25% race, but starting on the softs at China actually could be a pretty big disadvantage.
It usually is, so I do wonder if we will see any drivers try to qualify on the mediums. We don't have too many here tonight, 13. If you consider someone might retire, there might be a couple of people invalidate. It's very easy to do, especially through the final corner. You can probably get a top 10 on the medium tyres if you keep it nice and clean.
Yeah, definitely. We have to wait and see as well. It's easy to invalidate. A lot of corners around China you can invalidate on. Noticeably, you can invalidate, I believe it's the exit of turn 8 and 9. That's one place you can invalidate. The last corner as well, very easy to invalidate. And also China, for a track that is a permanent circuit, just with it, my experience on this track, on this game, I don't know if you've had the same experience, but this track is almost built like it's a street circuit because the grip around China for a permanent circuit is incredibly low.
I mean, I seem to enjoy... I've mentioned this before. I think I mentioned this in the Division 1 stream last week. I enjoy China, and I'm not sure whether that's just because when I race I'm too lazy to practice, and most other people hate China, so they don't bother practicing, and it makes me look better, but it is quite a tricky circuit. And again, you need that setup compromise, because you've got that long straight where you're going to see everyone doing the overtaking into the hairpin at turn 14, but turns 7 and 8 really test the downforce and the balance of F1 cars, and if your tyres are slightly worn out, you're going to be so much slow through there and have bucket loads of understeer, and that's where you'll lose a lot of your time.
And obviously the problem as well is that we have clear weather, obviously for China, clear dry weather, which means another thing that these guys are going to have to deal with, especially on the soft compound tyres, is tyre overheating. That front left dies around this track. There are so many long right-handed corners at this circuit that kill that front left immediately. I know in 50% races as well, running on the soft compound tyres within 3 laps, your front left tyre is massively overheating. So it's actually really important around China. If you want a good race, you kind of have to drive within yourself to get the best result, don't you?
Yeah, you need to pay full attention to the tyre wear and realise, right, my front right is going to wear out all the time, so maybe I can push a bit harder into turn 7, for example, that left-hander, and take it a bit easier into turn 8, and again, just hold off ever so slightly through turns 1, 2, I mentioned turn 8, turn 12, just to save the tyres that tiny bit, so they're in a better condition, so when you do need to push before a pit stop, or just need to push to get within a second of someone or overtake them, you've got that bit of grip left in the tyres.
Yeah, that you're going to have to try and drive within yourself and save those tyres to try and get a good result. We'll wait and see. Does anyone go tactical with their qualifying? Do they try and qualify on the mediums, or do they all go for the softs, hoping to start inside the top 10? I think you'll imagine the people that think they can get pole position on the softs will go for it. So the likes of Perpetua, Honey Badger, maybe the likes of Cam and Adamako as well, they will all go for the softs, but maybe someone a little bit further down, maybe Siege, he saw how powerful that alternate strategy was at Vietnam, so at China he might try and go for it immediately. But we're going to ride on board then with Cam for qualifying, so let's wait and see what he can do. He's on the soft compound tyres as he heads now towards turn 1 and turn 2, into the corner nicely, brake by the time you get to the apex as you brake through turn 2 and then drop down the hill through turn 3. Easy to lock up a left front here, but gets away with it nicely through the corner and then onto the exit, that little kink, and now onto this straight. It is an overtaking opportunity if you're close enough, down into the turn 6 hairpin, through the kink of 5 and now into the braking zone for 6. Very late on the brakes for the McLaren man, gets the car stopped nicely in a purple first sector, looking good so far, and now coming through turn 7 and 8. Very testing on the cars, very testing on the tyres through 7, nearly completely flat out, actually was flat out for Cam, and now through turn 8, downshifts once into the corner and then into the double apex of turn 9 and 10. Make sure you don't get on the power too early through turn 9. You can spin through turn 10. Keeps it on the track nicely. Cam is flying on this lap at the moment, and now into turn 11. Get the apex nicely, not too much. Don't want to hit the grass because you can lose traction. Through 12, and then make sure you don't run out too wide onto that curb so you can get a nice squared run through turn 13. And now down that back straight, 1.1 kilometers long, one of the longest straights on the calendar. A great overtaking opportunity down the straight. He opens the DRS about 40% of the way down the straight. It's actually quite a short DRS zone compared to the whole straight, and now down into the braking zone for turn 14. Don't take too much of the curb on the inside, and now through the kink of 15 afterwards, not really a corner at all. And now into the final corner of 16, very easy to invalidate on the outside. Cam goes into the corner, has to back out of the throttle a little bit midway through, but a brilliant lap from Cam. He crosses the line, 0.6 of a second clear of the rest of the field. What a brilliant lap from Cam that was.
Yeah, absolutely nailed that qualifying lap. Betum 7th on the medium tyres. Tekken just missing out, but he won't be too bothered. He'll get the fresh tyre choice. I actually was on board with Honey Badger as he went through turn 2, and he actually went completely around, spun the car, and it looks like he spun again. So he was pole last time out in Vietnam. Didn't really help him too much. He's going to be last here, but he gets that free tyre choice.
Yeah, that's a good thing for him, the free tyre choice. And as well, from 13th on the grid, the only way is up for him, so he can't drop from like he did in Vietnam. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do. Can he make a comeback drive work for him? Can he work his way through the field? But here is the qualifying order then for you. Cam on pole position for the second round in a row. Well, not in the second round in a row. He actually missed out on pole, didn't he, in Vietnam. He got on the front row last time out, though. Once again, though, Racing Point on the front row and the second row again. Wesker second and Adam Acko third. But Adam Acko third on the grid, a second off pole position and half a second off of his teammate. Corboy again in fourth with Graham in fifth. Those Alpha Tauris in qualifying can't be separated. Mays in sixth. Perpetuum, like you said, on the mediums in seventh. Siege eighth ahead of Silas ninth and Etham 10th. Tekken 11th. Serve the Bless in 12th and Honey Badger invalidating and spinning on his lap. So his time was not counted. He's in 13th on the grid. I'm amazed, though, in the end that Perpetuum was the only one that went for those medium tyres and made it work. I was expecting maybe Siege to go for them, but even on soft compound tyres, Siege didn't really have a lot of pace.
Yeah, I don't know whether he made a slight mistake at any point, but Perpetuum 2.3 seconds off on the medium tyres. I think it just shows what a good lap it was in that session by Cam. Let's not forget, it's one-shot qualifying. Normally for drivers, you don't have that track evolution and you can't really get bedded into a decent lap. You've just got to go for it straight away. It worked absolutely perfectly. Last time out, a couple of weeks ago in Australia and Bahrain, he had a bad race in Australia, managed to recover though, and obviously I think he believed he took the win in Bahrain. He's had a bad race in Vietnam. Are we going to see history repeat itself here at China?
Have to wait and see. Can he pull this off? Is it going to repeat at Bahrain, like you say? Can he get that race victory under his belt from pole position? Qualifying suggests that he could get that race victory, but we've seen that multiple times this season already from Cam, that he has a good qualifying and just isn't able to convert it in the race. And what do people do in terms of strategy outside of the top 10, and how much of a part in this race are they going to play? How much of a role is Perpetuum going to play in this race on those medium tyres? We get ready for the warm-up lap. You would imagine that everyone outside of the top 10 will be starting on the medium compound tyres looking at it. Actually, no. Only Tekken. So Bless is on the softs, and Honey Badger, interestingly, is also on the soft tyres. I was expecting Honey Badger to go for the mediums, but maybe anticipating maybe that he might get some front wing damage earlier on because he's at the back of the field and not wanting to run the risk of running the mediums.
Yeah, or just thinking that he wants to try and fight his way up as quickly as possible, then go for the fresh mediums later on, because that's going to cost a few of these guys more here. I think even Perpetuum is obviously normally we have the when we have normal qualifying and a 50% race. For tyre wear that they've got on their tyres from qualifying is basically going to have been doubled, so they're going to struggle a bit in these first stages. Even Perpetuum on the mediums, I do think though he is going to look really good if he can just cope with those mediums in the first couple of laps, because he's got pretty much everyone behind him apart from Tekken. Interesting how Tekken's gone for the medium tyres like he did in qualifying, and Serve the Blessed and Honey Badger have gone for the softs like they did in qualifying. A bit like you, I'm surprised no more drivers went for the medium tyres. I thought it was a surefire bet for everyone outside of the top 10 and a few of the others in qualifying. If, though, Cam shows the pace that he did show in that one-lap session, it's going to be very hard, I think, for anyone to beat him.
Yeah, the pace that he had was utterly dominant in qualifying. There's no doubt about it. Nearly 0.6 of a second clear of Wesker. But once again, just a word on Racing Point. Their start to the season has been utterly dominant. 3 podiums in a row for Wesker, 2 podiums and a 4th for Adam Acko. So it's been a dream start to the season for Racing Point, and once again, 2nd and 3rd on the grid, and they've been super consistent, not making mistakes so far this season. I think it's hard to bet Racing Point not finishing on the podium once again here.
Especially seeing as the 2nd and 3rd. I think it's something we said at the first race, and we'll say it again now. But with there being no safety cars, and with it being a shorter race, any mistakes are just so much more costly. If you have a spin and have to break your front wing, and then you're forced onto a 2-stop strategy for whatever reason, your chances of finishing in the top 10 are pretty much gone out the window, especially finishing higher up than probably 7th or 8th position. That's what's cost Cam. It cost Honey Badger last time. Perpetuum had broke that front wing, then got a penalty. That's what cost him the win. I can't think of Wesker or Adam Acko really making a serious mistake in this series so far. That's why they're 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship, and that is why they're leading the Constructors' Championship at the moment, and they'll be leading it at the end. Will we have again, though, Cam getting a second win of the season and becoming the second driver to win 2 races because, of course, Adamako has won the first race of the night both times so far. Honey Badger said that he actually put the medium tyres on and the game has put him on the soft, so that's not an ideal strategy for him at the moment. He'd have been wanting to be on those medium tyres. As we wait for the lights to come on here then at China, we've got 5 lights and we are racing, and again the man in second place looks like to have got a fairly decent start. This time it's Wesker though trying to get alongside Adamako as well. Cam just able to stay ahead as the 2 racing points nearly come to blows. We've got one of the Alfa Romeos trying to go all the way around the outside at turn 1. Pepetum's had a pretty good start on the medium tyres as well. He's now fighting with Graham for 5th and 6th position. In the back, Honey Badger starting on those softs. I said he might want to burst his way up the field, and that definitely seems to what he's done at the moment. But Cam's had an absolutely fantastic first sector. Retains the lead. Adamako in second. Wesker in third. Then it is the 2 Alpha Tauris behind. Maze battling with Tekken at the moment. Honey Badger involved in this as well, and Maze is sort of offline here through turn 7, and that's allowed Siege to work his way through as well, so not ideal for Maze at the moment. Now battling with his teammate, he's going to be on the outside for turn 9. This will be fantastic if he can make it work, and no, in the end he just has to give up. Brilliant start though from Cam, and again a bit like what we saw from Honey Badger from Paul last time, where it looked like he got a good start and then it all went wrong. Wesker looked to have an absolutely fantastic first stage to the start. He's ended up dropping behind his teammate, although he is right in the slipstream now of Adamako.
Yeah, Wesker at the moment looks the fastest at China. Just looking at that great view down that back straight. Cam, the lead he's got already in this race is crazy. And Wesker down the inside of Adamako. Adamako doesn't fight it. Maybe he knows that he's not the fastest of the 2 racing points. Having a look back towards the final corner, but backs out of it. Callboy once again sat in 4th, tantalisingly close to the top 3. Not quite there yet. Graham has got Perpetuum. Perpetuum nearly dropped the car coming out of turn 13. He was so sideways. And Honey Badger's into the pit lane already, so that's very interesting. Honey Badger and Siege both in. I don't think I saw any of them pick up damage, unless they picked up damage that we can't quite see. Honey Badger into his pit box. Is he getting a front wing change? No, he's not. So this is a strategic move from both Honey Badger and Siege. End of lap 1. They've gone for the medium tyres. That's incredibly early. I get that obviously the soft tyres aren't going to have a lot of grip, but lap 1, that's very early.
To be honest, I was expecting a few drivers coming round about lap 2, but probably not lap 1. They've got free air, they've got the medium tyres. We'll see if they can do anything with it, because it don't seem to have disadvantaged Perpetuum. He was nearly up to 5th, actually, ahead of Graham and behind Callboy, but Graham just managed to stay ahead. I think the reason why Cam's got such a big lead is I checked at the end of lap 1, he had 50% ERS. Everyone else was sort of in high 70s, low 80s at worst. He's just burnt all his ERS to break that 1 second window. And that could prove to be a fantastic tactic from him, because then he doesn't have to bother with defending. He's not wearing his tyres, weaving across the straight, whereas Wesker, he's probably going to have to defend a bit maybe from his teammate, and then you've got Callboy not too far behind as well. Petum, he'll be hoping that either Graham comes in this lap or that he's able to get past Graham pretty soon, then see what he can do. How long can he get those medium tyres? Doesn't want to go too long on them, because obviously being a 25% race, you've got less time to make that alternate strategy work, to go really fast on the softs at the end.
Yeah, and all of our top 5 then stay out on the track. No one else has come into the pit lane, interestingly. So I'd imagine Siege in very early, but they've decided that they're the only ones that have come in this early. I'm wondering whether coming in at the end of the lap 1, obviously good in terms of your relative pace against the soft runners, but your medium tyres might burn out quite heavily towards the end, because it's not a safe bet on the mediums either. The mediums do wear quite heavily around this track. It's the hard tyres you usually see in another race around this track. They're the most consistent. The medium tyres aren't quite a popular tyre either. So Honey Badger and Siege are really pushing their luck as to whether they can get to the end of the race with some speed left in their tyres. I think Siege as well might have had to change his front wing, because he is 5 seconds behind Honey Badger, but the Honey Badger did make an incredible start, so maybe that's just the gap he pulled in those opening laps. Perpetuum, you can see that the medium tyres have started to be the best tyre, but the problem here for Perpetuum is in that middle sector, the dirty air plays a massive role, especially turn 7 and 8. You can pick up a lot of understeer, and that can obviously affect your tyres. And Perpetuum at the moment, while he's seemingly got the pace, he just can't seem to make a move stick yet.
Yeah, and he's going to find it difficult here through 12 and 13 as well with the same issue. But I think luckily for him, Graham just got a bit of a side on, so that's ruined the Alpha Tauri driver's exit. And this should be a fairly straightforward pass for Perpetuum. ERS on, DRS open. He'll work his way up into 5th place, and there's not really a lot Graham can do about that. Surely we're going to see some pit stops this lap. I think you were right as well about Wesker being the fastest racing point. He's about 1.5 seconds ahead of Adam Acko at the moment, and we are going to see Adam Acko actually come into the pit. So all of the soft runners, well, out of the front 4 drivers, 3 of them coming in, Wesker staying out. That's a slight problem Racing Point have got at the moment with both of their drivers being so quick. One of them has got to stay out. Surprised it was Wesker though, as he was the lead car.
Yeah, I'm surprised Wesker didn't come in as well. I think he's definitely the only one at the moment that can seemingly challenge Cam. Cam got a little bit held in his box because of Adam Acko coming in, but it hasn't really cost him that much time, I don't think. Adam Acko came out still ahead of Coreboy. Coreboy still tantalisingly close to 3rd place, stuck in 4th, not quite able to get on that podium, but he's doing a good job for AlphaTauri, as is Graham. Obviously, Graham and Wesker both having to stay out because their teammates came into the pit lane, so they're going a lap longer. But in terms of Wesker, he doesn't seem to have lost that much pace on these soft tyres yet. He seems to be going quite nicely on them. Perpetuum's closing in ever so slightly, but not at the massive rate you would expect at this point in the race for the medium tyres. Just looking further back as well, where Honey Badger came out relative to the other drivers, Coreboy came out just ahead of Honey Badger, and Honey Badger again sliding all over the road on those tyres. Ethan pitted as well. He's come out ahead of Siege quite comfortably, actually, 1.5 seconds ahead in 12th place. But Honey Badger, that early pit stop, not really gained him much because he's only just behind Coreboy, and that was where he was really before he came in anyway.
Yeah, I think it's going to cost him towards the end, just having that slightly older tyres and now being stuck behind another car. Silas seems to be really struggling on his soft tyres as he's got himself a 3-second time penalty, and he's soon going to find a Mercedes streaking down the inside into the hairpin. That is Mays up into top 5 at the moment. Mays just doing what Mays does. You know you're not going to get the fastest performance compared to some of these other drivers, but he won't get a penalty, and he'll always pretty much get towards the end of the race. As now we see Wesker and Graham and Mays come into the pits. Silas staying out on the soft tyres. We'll see if Serve the Blessed comes in as well. No, he stays out. So still 2 of the soft runners coming into the pits, and Wesker on the hard tyres. That is an interesting choice, to say the least.
Yeah, for a 25% race, I was not expecting to see the hard tyres. Where does he come out onto the track compared to his teammate? Look at the undercut that Adam Acko has been able to pull. He's not quite ahead of his teammate, but look at that. It's basically over half the gap between himself and his teammate. And Wesker putting on the hard compound tyres, maybe thinking a bit of the latter stage of this race. Maybe he doesn't think that the mediums are going to last to the end, but if that was the case, if he didn't think the mediums are going to last to the end of the race, surely he should have pitted at the end of lap 1 or 2 to put the hard tyres on and not wait till the end of lap 4, because now he's only got 10 laps left in this race.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. If you're going to put the hard tyres on, why didn't he pit before his teammate? We'll never know. He's behind Serve the Blessed at the moment, but there's quite a gap, and that undercut for Cam just managed to work out. He's now 4 seconds ahead of Wesker. If he keeps it clean, surely this is his. Surely this is his race victory, because he's going to catch up to Perpetuum all of a sudden, who's going to have to try and work his way through a lot of traffic. And I know he did it really well last time out in Vietnam. We'll have to see if he can do it as well again this time around, as Wesker gets ahead of Serve the Blessed there. They'll have DRS down the straight, and Serve in that Haas, no ERS. He's still going to find Adam Acko flying past as well. Honey Badger seems to have dropped a bit back from Coreboy as well, so I think already dirty air just costed him, and he's going to find it a bit of a struggle to maybe even get a top, to maybe just hold on to that 9th place where he is at the moment now, to be honest.
Yeah, it's looking a bit of a struggle once again as Cam sets the fastest up of the race at 32.6. He is flying away in the lead with this race at the moment, absolutely dominating proceedings. And now Adam Acko is directly behind his teammate. It was advantage Wesker at the start of the race, and now Wesker on those hard compound tyres has meant that his teammate's been brought back into this, and this will allow both Coreboy and Honey Badger to close in. The one person that really struggled on those softs and has cost him dearly is Graham. He's lost complete touch with this battle as Siege has retired from the race in the pit lane. What a shame for Siege. He's decided not to continue with this one. Obviously must have had some sort of spin maybe on that lap, picked up some damage, and has decided not to continue, but that does mean he will not score any points in this race. That is a shame for him. But back to the lead of the race, remember Perpetuum and Tekken started on the medium tyres. Perpetuum out front, so we obviously can't count him out of this race just yet, but I mean, when he was running on those medium tyres behind Wesker, Wesker was still running at very similar pace to him. So I'm not quite sure at the moment if Perpetuum really has the pace to pull this strategy off.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Wesker's definitely not pulling this strategy off, though, at the moment. He's just holding Adam Acko up. The gap was about 4 seconds after the pit stop between Wesker and Cam. It's now 5.2 seconds, and Wesker's just got Adam stuck in his dirty air. That's allowed Coreboy to get within DRS range. It's allowed Honey Badger He's just about stayed in DRS range of Cowboy, and this is... Adamako's got to go for a move soon. If they're not communicating together, he needs to be saying, I need to get ahead of you. I'm on a completely different strategy here. Because this is just going to completely ruin Adam's race, stuck behind his teammate. And it's going to bring Cowboy Honey Badger into play for that second place. And let's not forget Perpetuum when he makes his pit stop, which I imagine will be roundabout, judging by how long some of the others went, lap 9 or lap 10.
Yeah, not far away for his pit stop as well. Honey Badger and Cam both picking up penalties on the exit of the last corner. Cam at the moment has enough of a gap for that not to really worry him. One thing I've noticed though for Cam, he has really completely burned through his ERS, so you can tell he's really pushing, trying to build enough of a buffer in case anything happens later on in this race. Only down to 20%. Wesker's got a lot more, but again, he's really holding his teammate up at this point in the race, and he's wide at turn 6. Is Adamako going to go for a move at turn 7? He's not close enough, but he's tucked right up underneath the rear wing of his teammate Wesker. Unless he knows something that we don't know, this strategy isn't working for him so far. He's going to have to hope that those medium tyres fall off a cliff at the end of this race. Looking as well to the leaders, Perpetuum continues to pull away from Tekken. Cam is catching Tekken hand over fist. I think it was 2 seconds a lap faster than Tekken on the previous lap, so he's absolutely flying. Wesker's not lost as much on this lap, but still, already on this lap alone, 0.6 of a second down on Cam. This hard tyre strategy is a bizarre one. I think it would have made sense at the end of lap 1 or 2 when Honey Badger pitted, but this late in the race, it's just costing their Racing Point an opportunity at trying to steal the win off Cam.
Yeah, and as I say, it's going to cost him a podium, I think. Well, it's going to cost him second place, because when Perpetuum pits, he's going to come out on the back of these guys on the soft tyres, so... Even with the... as Adamako nearly loses it there, actually, coming through the hairpin there, and that's given his teammate a bit of a respite. Has he dropped him out of DRS range? It has, so now Cowboy might give it a go here into turn 1, just not quite close enough to get himself up into 5th, which would be a net 3rd position.
Oh, and Honey Badger.
And Honey Badger is off. Has he got any damage?
Yeah, he just ran straight into the back of Cowboy. Cowboy obviously having to back off for Adamako through turn 1. Honey Badger caught out by it. Honey Badger went so wide coming out of the final corner, had a massive run onto the straight, and the overspeed he had into turn 1 I think caught him out. And again, Honey Badger from a good position, broken his front wing, and he's going to have to come in to replace that. Honey Badger from a possible maybe top 5 in this race, all gone once again for him.
Yeah, again,
when he spun the car.
He's round. Is he in the wall?
Yes, he is.
He is, but thankfully for him, he's not lost his wheel. So if he finishes, everyone who finishes will get a point here because we've got less than 20 drivers. So if he just carries on, he might get some points and might be able to steal a fastest lap as well. But now he's overheated his rear tyres. It's just not going well for Honey Badger. And that's probably one less car now for Perpetuum to pass when he comes into the pits, because he's keeping that gap to Wesker at around about 20 seconds. Will he come into the pits this time around? He does. So Perpetuum into the pits. Oh, nearly copying what Lewis Hamilton did around there. Thankfully for him, there's no gravel trap. Pushing as hard as
Cowboy
possible.
and Adamako.
Cowboy
trying to go around the outside of Adamako. Adamako a little bit of a late defence, but gets away with it. Cowboy just didn't quite have the overspeed. Adamako, despite not being in DRS range of Wesker, he didn't have DRS down that straight. Adamako's car is very fast in a straight line, so that could help him later on. Cowboy trying to go for the move. He's desperate to get past, but once again, for the second race tonight, Cowboy is just stuck behind a Racing Point trying to get on the podium. Perpetuum then comes out of the pit lane, and like you said, he is directly on the back of this queue, 1.1 seconds behind. These 3 drivers in front of him surely have got to be easy meat for Perpetuum now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can see he's all over the back of them. These 2 battling's going to hold each other up as well, maybe. Might just allow Wesker to go away. He's not going to have any defence. It's all about whether Perpetuum's got enough time to catch up for Cam. I think he's just about going to run short here, because now he's going to be stuck behind Cowboy through turn 7 and 8. You can see he's having to lift off ever so slightly there. Can he go all the way around the outside at 8? Just look how much grip he has got compared to the Alpha Tauri. I have never seen a move just look that straightforward through turn 8, and it's not like Cowboy made a mistake at any point. That was just pure difference in the tyres. And we passed Adamako into the hairpin at this rate. Maybe I'm a bit premature calling this race in favour of Cam. Maybe we're going to see another crazy end from Perpetuum.
Yeah, and I think Tekken actually just pulled the same move off on Maze. Tekken's now up into 8th place, so he's doing a good job on the same strategy. He'll be able to get past Ethan and have a go at Graham for 6th place in this race. He's doing a good job, and look at Perpetuum already past Adam Acko. 2 in 1 lap. He's flying once again in the second half of a race. Perpetuum is coming alive, absolutely flying. The strategy's working nicely for him. He's got Wesker just in front of him on the hard compound tyres, so if those two were easy meets, surely Wesker's going to be past. He's going to be past Wesker in a breeze. And that move around the outside of turn 8, I don't think I've ever seen anyone, except for on maybe lap 1 of a race, I've never seen anyone go around the outside of someone at turn 8. That looked like he was driving against AI. It was just so easy for him. He breezed past, and look how much he closed in on Wesker in turn 1 and 2 alone. It's already down to 0.3 of a second as Etham has now passed, Tekken's now passed Etham as well, so he's up into 7th place. These soft tyres massively faster, and look at the move. He's trying to go for the outside of turn 6. He's going to try and breeze around the outside of Wesker. Can he get that move done? There's a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact between them, but Perpetuum breezes round the outside of another driver, and already in almost exactly a lap, he's up 3 places and into 2nd place. It's not over. Perpetuum could win this one.
With his tyre grip at the moment, you're going to say he probably is going to win this one, as Honey Badger now retires from the race, so we've only got 11 drivers left. Tekken's showing some fantastic pace as well, obviously, on the soft tyres. He'll be able to catch up to Graham, and I imagine overtake him, but any further is not possible. Just got to wonder, if I was Adam Acko, I'd be thinking, well, maybe if I'd managed to get ahead of Wesker, I'd be a bit further up the road at the moment, and I'd be making it a bit harder for Perpetuum. But now that he's been stuck behind him for so long, those mediums will have worn out, the hards will be coming into their own. Maybe the first mistake we've seen on the season from Racing Point. They're still looking good to get 3rd and 4th position. With the alternate strategy, that's probably all they were going to get anyway, with the pace Perpetuum is showing. But maybe, just maybe, Wesker should have let Adam Acko go, and this could have ended up ever so slightly different. Yeah,
absolutely. It could have been, look at that, a 31.6 from Perpetuum while passing cars. That's a brilliant lap time from the Ferrari man. He's only got to get within 3 seconds of Cam, remember. Cam does have a time penalty. He doesn't have to pass him on track, and it's these long corners where you can see Perpetuum gaining time. 0.3 in turn 1 and 2 already. Make that 0.4 as he comes out of turn 3 and 4. So flying along is the Ferrari man, and he's gapped Wesker by 2.2 seconds in a lap. He is gone. Adam Acko is now under pressure from Corboy, so once again, Corboy starting to come back at Adam Acko, who just doesn't quite have the pace around China, who's had the pace all season long. This is probably the slowest that Adam Acko has been all season. I say that he's running in 4th place. That just goes to show how good his season's been so far. He obviously finished 4th in Bahrain as well, but he was tucked right in that battle for the podium places at the time, as he is again today. I think the thing for Wesker, while it might have been good for the team standpoint for him to maybe let Adam Acko go and give Adam Acko an opportunity at holding on to 2nd place. Wesker here is trying to keep hold of his run of four podiums in a row, as Etham's now spun coming out of turn 6 and has hit the wall, so that's another retiree from this race. We're down to 10 drivers. But yeah, like I was saying, I'm sure Wesker, on a personal standpoint, will want to keep his run of 3 podiums going up to 4, and maybe try and close in on his teammate in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, it looks like he is going to do that at the moment, and if Corboy can get up past Adam Acko, he might just be able to close in a bit more. They're both very low on ERS. Corboy's got a slight bit more, but just can't stay close enough in the dirty air. We've mentioned it before from turns 12 and 13. In fact, Corboy getting all crossed up at the hairpin there, dropping quite a long way back, so Adam Acko gets to relax. 3 laps to go, 4.5 seconds the gap. At this pace, Perpetuum's definitely going to catch up to him. It's just whether he'll have enough tyres left when he does catch up to make the overtake.
Yeah, still 3 laps to go, so at this point we would expect that those soft tyres will start to degrade quite heavily, especially that front left tyre in these longer corners. So it's whether Perpetuum can keep the pace up, or has Cam maybe taken too much life out of his medium tyres too early on. He obviously pitted on the same lap as Adam Acko and Corboy, but you can tell by the lack of the RS he's got running on his own, he has been pushing like mad, and he got a time penalty for his troubles as well. And maybe he's taken too much life out of those medium tyres too early on, and that will not allow him to defend against Perpetuum. Then Perpetuum's already brought the gap down to 4 seconds, only half a lap through, and he's already cut that gap from it was 4.5 down to 3.9 now. So he's absolutely flying. It looks dead set that Perpetuum could pass him on penalties. It's just whether he can keep those soft tyres going. Tekken, meanwhile, will run into his race, running in 7th place, 3 seconds behind Graham. Graham, what a shame for him. He was tucked up right behind his AlphaTauri teammate. But after those pit stops, I don't know what's happened on these medium tyres, but Graham, 9 seconds back now. He's lost so much time on these tyres.
Yeah, don't know whether he had a bit of damage in the pit stop and he had to repair it. It just hasn't looked comfortable on these tyres whatsoever. And maybe just falling out of that DRS train cost him a slight bit of time. It wouldn't have cost him 10 seconds. There's no way it's worth that much. We do say they're powerful, but not that powerful, certainly. Yeah, it's been a consistent race. He hasn't made any serious mistakes. He is probably going to lose. Well, he's not doing too bad. He's kept the gap at about 3 seconds at the moment. I wonder if already, because Pepetim's only gained 1 second on that lap when he needs to gain 1.5 seconds. I wonder if we've already hit the point where after 3 laps, these soft tyres have peaked and the mediums are going to last until the end of this race. Pepetim only needs to find 0.4 seconds at the moment to take the win on penalties. I think part of him would have been wanting to take it out on track, though. Needs to be careful because he's only 1 warning away from getting a penalty as well.
Yeah, he's got to try and keep it on the road. He's definitely got the pace at the moment to get within that penalty window, like you say, but on track, I think that opportunity's gone unless Cam makes a mistake of some sort. But we'll have to wait and see. Perpetuum seems to be holding on nicely to these tyres. It doesn't seem to be struggling too much. I say that, though. Runs a little bit wide out of turn 10. Nearly picks up a penalty, but gets away with it. Looking further behind as well. I mean, Wesker, while he has been holding up his teammate, it doesn't look like that's the case anymore because Adamako's no longer in DRS range. Wesker's starting to pull away, so it now looks like the hard tyres are starting to come into their own against the mediums. And Wesker has a lot of ERS in his back pocket to use. So it's now starting to work for him, but as we said earlier on, it was just too late. We're coming on to the final lap of the race, and only the hard tyres are starting to work now. So this strategy, a bold one, and it was maybe worth the risk for Wesker, because I don't think he would have finished any better than third anyway in this race. Worth the risk, but it's just not quite paid off.
No, it hasn't quite paid off, and I think summing it all up, the pace in this second stint, I mean, after the pit stops, Wesker just lost about a second a lap to Cam. Now it's stabilising ever so slightly. It just hasn't worked out. He'll be fairly happy though with third place. I don't think Adam will be too annoyed with fourth, and will probably admit that he didn't really have the pace to beat Wesker on pure pace. He'll know he got that better start, but once Wesker got ahead of him, he did just seem to escape, and Adam was only really ever close because of the undercut. Leader of the race, so they've got 2 sectors to go now. Betim 2.5 seconds behind, still closing up ever so slightly. As long as he keeps it clean, should have enough to take this race on penalties, but it just shows how dramatic the tyre wear is. We're not used to it as commentators, they're not used to it as drivers. Doing these 25% races, it looked like Pepetim was easily going to close up this gap at one point, and all of a sudden he's still going to end up finishing about 2.5 seconds behind. Yeah,
the soft tyres really have already reached the peak of their life, and it's role reversal really from Vietnam, isn't it? Perpetuum was the one out front trying to pull away with a time penalty, and now he's the one closing in on someone with a time penalty. At the moment, though, it does look like Perpetuum's going to do it. He's got a couple corners to negotiate without picking up a penalty. He should come home with a race victory in a first and a second in his first night in the Sprint Championship. A great way to start his campaign and start closing in on those racing points who will continue to lead the championship after this event. Cam will close in after China, but obviously that poor round of Vietnam means that the gap will be even bigger than it was coming into tonight. Cam, then, great drive from him. It's been a really, really dominant drive, really, in terms of speed. He's been so much faster than everyone else on the same strategy, but in the end, that one penalty is going to massively cost him. Perpetuum on the alternate strategy, it paid off, qualified 7th on the medium tyres, and he comes home to win the race. Wesker is going to cross the line on the hard compound tyres in 3rd, ahead of Adamako in 4th, and again Corboy tucked right up behind Adamako, crosses the line in 5th place, loses out to the racing points by a matter of tenths of a second. Graham is going to hold on to 6th place in the end. Tekken looks like he burnt through his soft tyres, wasn't able to close in any more than he already had. Mays will cross the line in 8th place, and we just now wait for Silas and Blessed, who both had their own issues in this race, which is why they're a little bit further down. But it was a pretty interesting race, and that race, unlike Vietnam was about strategy, but China was all about strategy, and in the end, Perpetuum had the winning one.
Yeah, it worked out well for him. Stayed out just long enough on those medium tyres to make the softs last until the end. I still wonder maybe he should have done 1 lap more. Maybe he was just losing a bit too much time for Cam, so probably wouldn't have made a bit too much different. Wesker's strategy, it puzzled us ever so slightly, but in the end, Adam, Honey Badger, when he was behind Corboy as well, weren't able to really work their way up through the field because of DRS trains, and he got rewarded with his 4th podium of the series so far.
Yeah, Wesker has been very, very consistent. 4 podiums out of 4, but the shame for Wesker really is he's not had a win as of yet. 4 podiums have all been 2nd and 3rd places. He's had 2, his teammates had 2 wins, he hasn't, so he'll be desperate to try and get that first win at the next round next week on Wednesday. But a brilliant drive for Perpetuum today. The opposite of what he did in Vietnam. Lost out on the race victory due to a penalty, and this time won the race because of a penalty for our race leader. So Perpetuum then wins from 7th on the grid. Cam could have picked up his second race victory of the season, unable to quite do so. Finishes 8 tenths behind because of a penalty. Wesker on the podium yet again ahead of Adamako in 4th. Racing Point not quite as fast as the top 2, but even so they will continue to extend their lead in the Manufacturers Championship. AlphaTauri, a good showing, 5th and 6th for them. Callboy ahead of Graham. Tekken in 7th place on the alternate strategy, just not the same pace as Perpetuum, but still a good result for him. Maze in 8th ahead of Silas in 9th. Serve the Bless, the last of the point scorers, in 10th place. Etham, Honeybadger and Siege, 3 drivers you would expect to be battling in the mid part of the top 10, and especially Honeybadger battling for the podium, not able to finish the race. And it just goes to show that actually we had more retirements here than we did in Vietnam, and it just goes to show that China is a really difficult track to master.
I think it is because everyone thinks about Vietnam, right, this is a really tough track, and you tend to drive within yourself. China's got plenty of runoff area. I think tonight just a few frustrations maybe creeping in. Honeybadger just seemed to be really struggling with oversteer. I know Siege said he actually didn't put a setup on for this race, so maybe there was a bit of frustration with that. Ethan made a few mistakes in Vietnam and here as well. The thing is, though, if you end up retiring in the pits, you've cost yourself a chance at getting some points, and who knows how close it could be at the end of the season. We've seen some really close races at the moment. Perpetuum looking really quick tonight, though. Probably the most impressive performance we've seen over 2 nights in terms of pure pace. Could have easily won both of the races. Ironically, he lost one race because of a penalty. He's won another because of a penalty, but definitely the fastest driver we've seen tonight.
Definitely, yeah, and it's a shame in terms of his championship battle. It's a shame that he missed the first 2 rounds because he does look very fast, but that will be a story to follow all season long. Can Perpetuum start to close in on those racing points? 2 good results of Adamako, and he picks up another win. He's our first double winner of the season after 4 rounds, so good stuff from him. He will extend his championship lead, and Racing Point will extend their manufacturer's lead. But tune in next week on Wednesday at the same time for rounds 5 and 6, and they will be at Netherlands and Spain. So while we just had 2 tracks that are notorious for good overtaking opportunities, Netherlands and Spain are quite the opposite. So that's going to be all about qualifying. So I'm wondering whether Cam can pick up that second race victory of the season. He's looked very good in qualifying so far today. Could have had pole in Vietnam were it not for a mistake, and utterly dominated qualifying in China. So look out for that one next week, and tune into League Racing TV as well for the rest of the week. Tomorrow obviously you have the Division 2 and 3 races at Spain, and Division 4 and 5 races will be happening on Friday at the same times at 8 PM. So look out for those. But from myself and Luke Etheridge, it is thank you very much for joining us once again, and we will see you again this time next week. Goodbye.